Do we need to state the code for it?
Do I need to, I was going to state that at the end, but I can do that now.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to do it both times if we'd like to, but yeah, we'll definitely restate it again when we make the motion to enter closed session as well.
That's what I was waiting on. But, all right. So I am requesting a motion to go into closed session for pending litigation and employment of specific employee pursuant to 5 ILCS 120-2, C2, and C11. So motion made by Mary Alice, seconded by Grace. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're voting on the agenda, right?
Correct, to add to.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Aye.
All right, all opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you all. All right, we will now proceed with presentations and public input. If there are any members of the public, you may come to the microphone, state your name and city. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. Rush off the spot.
Hi, my name is Lila Leopold. I'm a resident of Ward 4. I'm sorry, I always forget what public comment goes first, so forgive me for just rushing up here. I wanted to come out again and continue my support for the conversation around the public surveillance ordinance, and just really applaud you all for continuing to have these discussions year after year and try to figure out language that will work well for our community, because I know everyone's working on their different pieces of this puzzle of our community, and we're also, you know, given these tools that come from elsewhere. So just wanted to clarify in person, because I think I've given some of these comments through email and this and that I really, really support having an ordinance like this, because so much of what we're using wasn't, you know, designed by everyone in this community together. It's has its strengths, it has its weaknesses, it has its dangers, and I just really know that everyone wants the best for everyone here, so it seems super important to have a way of carving out time and space to take this really, really seriously for the gravity of effects that using things that have unintended consequences can really, really shake up people's lives in a bad way when that wasn't the intention, or reveal, okay, I'm talking in a loop there. I'm gonna end that sentence, but just trying to blab while more people walk in behind me because I can hear the door, but not really blab. I'm really serious about this and want, I just don't want for people's strong support of something like this to be seen as a criticism of, or just a straight criticism of any one thing that any one of this member of this community is trying to do to keep it safe in their various ways. It's just that these things are so beyond what we can really control sometimes. So if we have a choice of these things, you know, while we're still a hyped up super capitalist society, since we have a choice, we should really look into them seriously. And there's just been so much unnecessary violence out there for people trying to do things peacefully and just live their lives. So if we have any chance at all of trying to live through this together, this seems like a really potentially helpful part of that in a way where we can still do this all together. So hope any of that makes sense, and thanks for your hard work on this and continuing to talk about it and really take it seriously, so thank you.
Hi there, City Council. My name is Ben Jocelyn. I'm a resident here in the city of Urbana. I am speaking on behalf of you continuing to regulate and move towards putting good civilian control over what surveillance technology happens to the civilian population of Urbana. I think that's a really good measure. We are at a moment when ICE is taking over and occupying Minneapolis, when folks are continuing to be stolen, and now that's happening in a more visible way. My cousin was taken. She lives in Minneapolis. She didn't look sufficiently American to the person who was stealing her from her place of business. Threw her in a van, put her in zip ties, and because she was followed by someone she knew and was able to receive a photo of her passport, was able to regain her rights and liberty in this nation where she has lived the majority of her life. Without that, she would have been stolen for who knows how long. And that kind of terror is what I've been trying to warn against as we increasingly become a militarized state with less and less civilian control and democratic control of who we are. I then am going to point out the fact that as a 36-year-old person who just took a job in an intensive care unit, Alex Preddy was murdered in cold blood, and the way that we define public safety, it turns out that all of our investments in body cameras and technology and policing hasn't brought about the safety that we desire. Our nation does not feel safe. We are more militarized in our police force. We are more technologized in our police force than any other nation on earth, and our people continue to not feel safe. And I wish that we had more support. And I know that as a city, you don't have enough resources to reallocate enough for the vacancies and the absences that our federal government seems to leave in its wake as it divests in healthcare, it divests in housing, it divests in food. And I know that our police force is left holding the bag for a lot of that, and that they are asked by a lot of people to meet those needs. Unfortunately, the structures they exist under are ones that have been allowed to lie to the citizenry, and we're not allowed to lie to them. I have been arrested for things that have been deemed unconstitutional and let go, and those charges dismissed, but that didn't stop it from stressing my life for a very long period of time. So as I continue to come up and sort of suggest that we move our resources towards investment in the people and into the citizen control of people and away from the police, that is where I'm coming from, and I appreciate you continuing to represent us to the best of your ability and move us in that direction. So thank you very much.
All right. If there's no one else speaking, did we have any letters or emails? I didn't receive any, so. All right, thank you all. Public input is now closed. We now move to council input and communications, and if it's okay, I guess I can start it off. I want to say thank you to our community. We didn't have a meeting last week, so I'll touch on it now, but thank you to our community for coming out to support our Kids Biz initiative, which we had 15 youth entrepreneurs selling their handmade products to probably a little over 100 people that ended up coming out to support. This is something that we've done, for a few years now. I'm excited to have it as a mayoral initiative, and, just for the transparency to council and everything, there's no direct funds or anything being spent on the Kids Biz. We work alongside Lincoln Square Mall as well as, Busey Bank from, previous relationships and things of that nature. So the space that they've provided us is free. So the tables and all of that stuff, it's free because, again, they've been supportive of, this initiative from day one. As far as the staff time and things of that nature, it's 3, maybe 4 hours a quarter. And that's all due to essentially the staff taking in the applications, from our young folks, our youth entrepreneurs. So I encourage anyone who has questions or would like to learn more about the event in itself to just simply come out, see the event, show support to our kiddos, just come. Spend some money with them, make them smile. This is our future. These are the future business owners of our community. So I definitely want to just send a shout out to all of the young folks out there. Also want to say congratulations to all of our participants of the citywide financial literacy program. We had the celebration ceremony the end of January. We had a 25% completion rate, which that may not seem like a lot, but that was actually the highest completion rate amongst all cities that have participated in this thus far in partnership with the African American Mayors Association. So I'm extremely proud and excited about that. And, you know, believe it or not, one of my suits is messed up now because the lady was crying on my shoulder just about the excitement, you know, in which that she, you know, had in completing that. So congratulations to those folks. Also excited that we've scheduled our interviews while we're sad that we're having to interview for Ward 4 replacement, which tonight is Jay's final night on council. But we're excited that we had 7 total applicants that applied for the position. So hopefully that's, you know, just a good sign that people want to be a part of the excitement that we're moving forward with. Let me see here. We had 2 that we weren't able to accept due to one not living in Ward 4, and then another one, just from a time standpoint, wasn't in Ward 4 long enough. But we have them all scheduled for interviews throughout the week, so I'm looking forward to the interview, and as well as look forward to you all getting an opportunity to meet and speak with them all as well. That's all I got. Sorry. Anyone else? It's awkward that the timer went off on the mayor. That's Grace.
Thank you. Just want to thanks for the public for coming out and for some of your input, and especially sharing some personal experiences. I don't really have words, but yeah, definitely feel the feelings, and am encouraged with many demonstrations going on locally and nationally showing a displeasure with the current situation and a lot of things that are going on with this country and systems that need to change. So just acknowledge that, but don't have any particular good words.
Anyone else? Mary Alice.
Just real quick, you know, this community had a nice snowfall, and all the people in Public Works really were out there getting everything ready so that people can get back to regular life. I just wanted to express my appreciation.
Thank you. Anyone else? James.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of the mayor here, but I just want people to keep an eye on the calendar, because we're talking about having some town hall listening sessions in the wards coming up towards the end of February, so keep an eye out, and as soon as we have those scheduled and locations set, you'll hear more.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Seeing none. All right. Thank you all. We will now hear reports of standing committees, which there are none, so we will move on to Committee of the Whole. Councilmember Evans, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. On behalf of the Committee of the Whole, I would move to approve Resolution Number 2026-01-003R, a resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, state motor fuel tax for Florida Avenue from Wright Street to Hillcrest Street. Resolution number 2026-01-004R, a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Housing Authority of Champaign County for the provision of environmental review services. And resolution number 2026-01-005R, a resolution approving an amendment to extend a redevelopment agreement project completion date, Race Street Ventures LLC, 118-120 on South Race Street. All 3 of those resolutions I moved for approval.
Second.
I am so sorry. Motion made by Chris, seconded by Mary Alice. Is there any discussion?
It's consent.
Oh, we move on. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Clerk, sorry,
Councilmember
please call the
Wu?
roll.
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Colasetti?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that passes. Thank you.
On the regular agenda, we have ordinance number 20, I move ordinance number 2026-01-002, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance. This will be budget amendment number 6, omnibus.
I'll second.
Motion made by Chris, seconded by Mary Ellis. Any other discussion? All right. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Sorry. Councilmember Wu,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Colasetti,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin,
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that passes. All right, thank you, Mr. Evans. Sorry about that, guys. I was taking notes and missed my cue there. All right, we'll now hear reports of special committees, which there are none, so we will, actually, I'm sorry, we have reports of officers, which we do have a presentation by the Urbana Police Department. Deputy Chief Mickelin, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so obviously my lack of preparation getting signed in here is evidence of this being my first time. But don't let that detract from my presentation, please. This is a group effort by our department. We really wanted to take the time to make sure that we got this right. Our staff's been working pretty diligently on it, so thank you. All right.
I'm sorry, and just check, you do have the mic light on and nice and
Yeah,
close so everybody can hear you
sorry.
on the recording?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'll speak up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Better?
There we go.
All right. So a raspy voice. It's not from yelling at people all day, I promise. All right, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to be here today. I want to start by acknowledging the work the council has already done on this ordinance. It is clear that a great deal of time and consideration has gone into it. I also want to thank the council for being willing to engage and collaborate with us throughout this process. The purpose of this presentation is not to oppose the ordinance. It is to address operational considerations that arise when policy is put into practice. These questions address definitions, workload, and long-term sustainability. And they're offered to support a clear and workable ordinance. Before getting into the details, I'd like to clarify how we approach this work. There are roughly 1,800 police agencies in the country, and estimates indicate that fewer than 1% currently operate under a civilian oversight model. We believe that nationally, this is where policing is headed. More departments will examine these frameworks, and more states will require them in the coming years. And Urbana has a history of being early and thoughtful in this space. This council and the ones prior have taken that approach with the use of force policy, the creation of the Civilian Police Review Board, and other accountability measures. Our goals reflect that same mindset. These are not police goals, they're not council goals, they are community goals. And everything that follows is grounded in that alignment. To be clear, we do not disagree that certain tools do belong in this conversation. Things like facial recognition and GPS tracking, whether owned by the department or accessed through a partner agency, are appropriately considered here. Our concern is how broadly the definition is written and what else may be unintentionally captured as a result. With that in mind, I'd like to address our first concern. When the police department was asked to compile a list of technologies, we approached that task using a very broad understanding of the term. We included tools, software, and systems currently in use, or have been used, or may be used again in the future. And that list was intentionally expansive. It was created in good faith and with the goal of being exhaustive rather than selective. And it's also important context to note that the current administration joined this conversation later in the process. I first reviewed the draft ordinance and formally engaged with it late last year after much of the initial framework had already been developed. And as we reviewed this ordinance and the definitions, which can be found in attachment A4 of surveillance and surveillance technology, it became clear that these definitions would need to be more specifically defined. One of the challenges we encountered when looking at technology inventory was distinguishing between tools that systematically or automatically collect new information and tools that analyze information that we already have access to. Some technologies actively gather data. They observe, record, and generate new data rather than relying on existing records. Other systems don't create new data. They sort, query, and analyze existing records, helping officers make sense of information that already exists. It's also important to distinguish between investigative analysis and intelligence functions. Investigative analysis is case-specific and retrospective, focused on understanding known events, people, or records in support of an active investigation. Intelligence functions, by contrast, are broader and forward-looking, involving pattern identification, strategic assessments, or the development of information not tied to a single case. And that distinction matters operationally. Analysis for investigative purposes is a core function of modern policing. It is how information is reviewed and decisions are informed. In that practice, the analysis depends on access to established law enforcement records, which is why it is conducted through regulated systems rather than ad hoc tools. Nationally used law enforcement systems like LEADS and NCIC are governed by state and federal law. Officers are mandated to conduct yearly training on their use, and there are routine audits. Misuse carries serious consequences, including criminal penalties. Investigative tools, like Cellebrite, are similarly controlled. Their use is governed by vendor restrictions and internal policies. They are not open-ended systems that can be used without accountability. These controls exist precisely because these tools are for defined investigative purposes, not for broad or continuous monitoring. In Illinois, unauthorized access or misuse of law enforcement database is a criminal offense. And the Urbana Police Department maintains internal policies governing information, technology use, data access, and investigative conduct. And those policies are enforceable, and officers are held accountable for violations. As the ordinance is applied, it's important to distinguish between technologies that currently operate within robust legal and policy frameworks and those that truly introduce surveillance capability that requires new oversight. That same distinction also applies to information that is already publicly available. Police regularly access information from social media platforms, search engines, and other publicly accessible sources. Accessing publicly available information for investigative purpose is not the same as surveillance. It does not involve secret collection, automated monitoring, or persistent tracking. This distinction aligns with national frameworks. The ACLU's Community Control Over Police Surveillance model identifies surveillance technologies as those that involve automated, persistent, or large-scale collection and analysis of information, characteristics that distinguish surveillance systems from routine investigative activity and make formal oversight appropriate. That type of monitoring is rare in our operations, but when it is used, it is deliberate, it is limited, and it is absolutely appropriate for oversight under this surveillance ordinance. The concern is that without a clear distinction, routine investigative activity using open source information can be treated the same as true surveillance systems. Public access and systematic monitoring are not the same, and the ordinance should be calibrated to regulate the latter without unintentionally capturing routine investigative work. And finally, the breadth of the current definition also risks capturing court-authorized investigative activity. As written, surveillance is defined as the act of observing or analyzing the movements, behavior, or actions of identifiable individuals. Under that language, even investigative analysis conducted pursuant to a judicial warrant could fall within the definition. In those circumstances, however, oversight has already occurred at the highest level recognized in our legal system. A neutral judge has reviewed the facts and authorized the collection or analysis in accordance with constitutional standards for a specific investigation. Legislative oversight and judicial oversight serve different roles. The ordinance is well suited to governing technologies that introduce ongoing or programmatic monitoring, but treating court-authorized investigative activity as surveillance would create redundancy rather than accountability and blur important constitutional boundaries. As written, the current definition of surveillance is functionally limitless. It is broad enough to encompass nearly any act of observation or analysis, including routine investigative work that is already a core and well-regulated function of policing. What's missing are the characteristics that national frameworks use to distinguish surveillance from ordinary investigative activity. Across federal guidance and civil liberties models and academic work, surveillance is typically associated with automation, persistent scale, and programmatic or ongoing use, concepts that are not clearly reflected in the current definition. That gap becomes clear when reading the surveillance technology exemptions as a whole. The ordinance excludes a wide range of tools and systems based on factors such as manual operation, limited purpose, lack of automation, or existing oversight, without ever articulating those criteria in the definition itself. As a result, the ordinance treats observation and analysis surveillance by default and relies on exemption to narrow its scope. In practice, this means that exemptions are expressing principles that the definition should be stating up front. In response to that, and to the City Council's request, we've drafted proposed definition language that moves those principles into the ordinance in a clear and workable way. These definitions are designed to do the heavy lifting up front, rather than relying on long lists of exemptions or interpretive fixes later in the ordinance. The definitions themselves establish a clear threshold for what qualifies as surveillance. The goal here is precision, not a reduction of oversight. Clear definition criteria allow the ordinance to distinguish routine investigation from true surveillance. This approach aligns with how surveillance is treated in national policy frameworks and civil liberty groups, as I mentioned earlier. It focuses on technologies that enable large-scale, persistent, or systematic monitoring, and those frameworks focus on the capabilities and impact of surveillance systems, but not on ordinary case-based investigative work. In short, these definitions focus oversight where it adds value, on technologies that introduce ongoing, scalable monitoring of people or behavior. At the same time, they preserve transparency and accountability without unintentionally regulating routine investigation that already operates within established legal and policy controls. Our next concern is with the definition of exigent circumstances. The ordinance defines exigent circumstances in attachment A1. The language references situations such as declared emergencies, disasters, or broad public safety events. That definition aligns well with emergency management and disaster response. It does not align well with, however, exigent circumstances are understood in law enforcement. In policing, exigency is usually narrow and immediate. It is about time-sensitive situations involving life-saving, serious harm, or locating a missing or endangered person. These are often isolated incidents that unfold quickly. The concern is that the current definition describes disaster conditions but does not clearly cover the types of exigent circumstances that our officers encounter in real life. This is why we are proposing a clarifying language, not to expand our authority, but to ensure the ordinance accurately reflects the circumstances that it is meant to govern. The accepted definition of exigency comes from established case law. It is the standard used by courts and police agencies across the country. It focuses on immediate need and applies where delay would pose a serious risk. This is not a new concept or one that we've expanded. It is the framework that all officers are trained on and expected to follow. This definition provides clear limits and clear guidance. It is narrow and situation specific. The Village of Oak Park, whose ordinance ours was modeled after, adheres to a definition of exigency that aligns with this legal definition. Under our ordinance language, exigent circumstances requires mayoral approval. That structure makes sense for declared emergencies or disasters. But best practice in law enforcement places authority for these decisions with the chief of police or their designee. Adding an executive approval step in time-sensitive situations would slow response and undermine effective incident management. With that context, this is the language that we are proposing. Authority remains with the chief of police. It is narrow, it is time limited, and it's tied to immediate risk and it does not authorize routine or ongoing use of technology. Most importantly, it reflects how exigent circumstances are understood in law enforcement and constitutional law. This brings us to the final operational consideration. The council has asked us to evaluate and practice what this ordinance requires. As the slide shows, the ordinance introduces new obligations. These include reporting and documentation, ongoing review and revision, and coordination with multiple oversight bodies. At the same time, the ordinance does not specify how this workload is to be resourced. It does not identify staffing, funding, or how these responsibilities are absorbed over time. It's important to note that the scope of that workload depends heavily on how broadly surveillance is defined. If the definition remains as it is, the number of systems subject to reporting and review grows significantly, and so does the work. If the definition is more precise and focused on true surveillance technologies, the workload and cost become far more manageable. These estimates reflect the ordinance as currently written and account only for the impact on the police department staff. They do not capture the additional demands that would fall on legal, finance, or other city departments. To better understand those impacts in context, we looked for comparable ordinances in other jurisdictions, such as Oak Park. What we found, though, is that there are very few direct comparables, as most surveillance oversight ordinances are relatively new, and many agencies have not yet completed a full use cycle. Even departments whose ordinance informed this proposal are still early in implementation, and time and cost impacts are still unknown. Given that reality, we could not rely on established benchmarks or proven cost models. So our approach instead was to build a reasonable estimate based on what the ordinance requires, the number of technologies involved, and the internal processes needed to comply with, and to give the council a realistic scope. We've broken the ordinance into two phases. Phase 1 reflects the initial implementation. This is the work required to bring existing technologies into compliance. It includes inventory review, drafting use and policy reports, internal coordination, and moving each item through the oversight process. Phase 1 is the big lift. It requires concentrated effort over a relatively short period of time, and it will likely involve multiple layers of review and revision. Phase 2 reflects our ongoing obligations. This includes annual reporting, tracking usage where required, and updating materials as technologies or expectations change. These estimates are based on the number of technologies involved and the level of review expected at each step. While they are estimates, they reflect real attention from people who already have full workloads. This work does not replace existing duties, it adds to it. And when complex work is layered onto an already full role, you risk delivering a lower quality work product across the board. Given that reality, sustained compliance will require additional professional staff support regardless of how the definition is refined. A narrower definition would reduce the overall burden, but it would not eliminate the need for added capacity. Without that support, these responsibilities will continue to fall on sworn supervisors and command staff whose primary role is operational and not administrative. I want to close by returning to where we started. This ordinance reflects a genuine commitment to public safety, accountability, and trust. And we recognize the work the council has put into this, and we appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the discussion. Our goal today, again, was not to challenge the purpose of this ordinance, but to highlight operational realities that matter once policy becomes practice. We believe this ordinance can set a strong example. To our regional peers, it signals Urbana's continued leadership in 21st century policing. To our community, it shows that the City Council and the Police Department are working together to keep Urbana safe and a place where people want to live. Thank you for your willingness to listen, to engage, and to approach this collaboratively.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the presentation and the entire police department for the effort that was put into this. We definitely appreciate you. Is there any questions, comments? I was going to say, Mary Alice.
Thank you so much for the additional information. It looked like you had written up some notes and so forth. I'm wondering if you could share those with council as well as your slides would be helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else? Grace?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I really appreciate taking the time to have some thoughtful consideration of this. I have quite a few points. I'm trying to think of where to start here. So I guess exigent circumstances, kind of point 1 and point 2 on the definitions of surveillance technology versus investigations. I thought we had some understanding on this from 2x2 meetings, public council meetings, other conversations about what you seem to be proposing for exigent circumstances of when the police chief thinks that there's serious bodily harm, there's a risk to public safety, that those things need to be in the use policy exemption for each technology. And we had talked about actually proposing that we change the term from exigent circumstances to disaster or catastrophic circumstances, because this is talking about a disaster and not an active shooter, not a missing person. We're talking about the town is flooded or on fire, or it's a pandemic, and or all the electricity's out in the whole town and all the stoplights and people are crashed everywhere. Like, this is a major disaster is what I think this is intended for. And I feel like we've had different times going back and forth on this, and I apologize if that's not where we stand. But I think that there is room within all those individual use policies where it has that kind of language, that it's more like we will, ask to borrow drones, for example, from other jurisdictions if we have that definition that we feel that this is reasonable. And so I guess maybe that's kind of like first point, putting out of what others think, because I feel like we had some kind of common understanding on that in the past, and it seems like this is not suggesting that. Happy for you to take it, or others. I guess I don't have a person that's necessarily directed at, but whoever would like to respond.
If you'd like to respond, then I'll go to James.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, I apologize if it seems like we were not on the same page. I really appreciate the conversations we have had. And I do believe that definition that's in there is appropriate in circumstances like I described in my PowerPoint presentation, like for disasters and pre-planned events, large-scale events. But when we started looking at other surveillance ordinances and comparing this to that, it became obvious that there's nothing within the surveillance ordinance to truly capture what exigent circumstances mean in law enforcement. And I know the example you gave, if active shooters and stuff like that could be included in use reports. But as I said in our discussion, there are situations that occur in real life, and when we're for police officers, where things become available that were unknown. And I think it would be a disservice to the city and to the police department if we didn't include something that captures that in there. Exigent circumstances would allow us to use something that was available, but not to continue that use past the point of immediacy.
I thank you for the response. And if I may just add something too, that is, we're talking about labor in reporting, that going through the exigent circumstance process is actually a lot more reporting and paperwork. And I think that's why it's intended to be very rare disaster, catastrophic circumstances. So if within each policy that says we'll access Champagne's license plate readers, for example, if we have a warrant, if there's an active investigation, that covers that. If we feel like there's serious threat to public safety or loss of life, that kind of definition, that those would all be within the policy for when and how we use license plate readers or any kind of technology. So I just wanted to point out that the exigent circumstances is actually a lot more emergency reporting within 30 days. That would not be that case if that was just within the policy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand what you're saying. Maybe I could give you an example to really narrow in on what I'm talking about. When I was a patrol officer working night shift, we got a call about a University of Illinois student who was missing. He was believed to be in danger. We exhausted our efforts to try to locate him, everything at our disposal. We'd spent quite a bit of time trying to find them. University of Illinois Police Department sergeant piped up and said, "Hey, the University of Illinois just got these new iCard readers installed at different buildings. When the University of Illinois students check in at the buildings, it shows where they're at and what time they did. Would you like me to check it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So he ran the card and said he just checked into the library a few minutes ago. We were able to locate him safely and find a great resolution to it. My worry is that if we only include, our administration's worry is that if we only include exigent circumstances and known use policies, we run the risk of limiting ourselves to find a safe resolution in those sort of circumstances.
James?
Yeah, I just want to add that I believe last time we talked about exigent circumstances, I brought up concern about it only being about natural disasters. And the thing I said was that we need to give more leeway, I think I said at the time, to the mayor to be able to determine or delegate someone to make a decision when there is harm, health, someone's life might be at risk to do this. So I don't believe that we were at a point where we agreed that natural disaster was the only thing that was going to justify exigent circumstances. And I imagined that was something that was going to come down to a vote when we were determining language at the final discussion.
Mary Alice?
So my thought is, I really like that example that you gave because, James knows all the student systems, but I don't think anybody else around here knows all the student systems. And so I feel like, ALPRs and drones and so forth, we know those exist in other, in the sheriff's office in Champaign, that we might be able to borrow them. So that's kind of known, and we could include that in the use policy. Right, and so we that's not exigent circumstance. We have clearly defined when it can be used and who has access to it and so forth. From what I'm hearing you say is okay, this is technology we know that's out there in the community that maybe we can access. This is a disaster, and a tornado comes in and wipes out a quarter of it, right? There's got to be something in between there. We can't know everything that could potentially help us. I'm just thinking I can't remember who said it. I don't know if you said it or something about surveillance technology. I'm like, I've been to Europe, and the surveillance technology in Europe is insane. You can watch, I was in France, and they were showing me down to an individual face that was 5 miles away. They could tell exactly what that person was doing. And follow them. So thankfully we're not there right now. However, the U of I has over 2,000 cameras. And that is something that can go in the use policy because we're aware of it. But there are certain things that we're not aware of until you start talking to other entities looking for it. So I hope that we can find some kind of middle ground where we are definitely going to make use policies for equipment we have borrowed in the past for emergency services, but not waiting for a tornado to come to our town. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yes, go for it, Zach.
Yeah, I think that's a great distinction, and thank you. You explained that much more eloquently than I did. And I didn't want this to seem like we're trying to find a loophole or a workaround to using technology that the City Council has not approved. That's not the intention of this. And as Mary Alice said, if there is technology that we know that we would be using from other departments, absolutely have use policies over those in the specific circumstances we would be using those technologies.
Grace?
Thank you. We'll just clarify that the current version 7.2 definition of exigent circumstances is state law, and it's not just natural disasters. There's plenty of human-caused disasters in there. And also, as far as specific technologies, because I think that would could maybe be a follow-up conversation. I don't know if that was the plan. For some of the specific technologies used, especially when we're talking about narrowing down the definition of surveillance technology. I still don't agree with trying to piece out investigation. I think that should be covered under the use policies. I don't think it's every single database, and I don't think that the definitions have ever indicated that. Some things I have asked about in general buckets was location tracking software like Placer AI, Plate Logics, and other ones that were given to us in this list, Mio Vision and some others, drone usage by various departments across the city and county. Biometric recognition that was on that list is CODIS, ident, fingerprint things. There's a bunch of acronyms here that are all in an email you can see, but also social monitoring analytics. There was quite a few things that were in that list, in that bucket, and then digital access to people's technology. So I feel like for me, those are some kind of main buckets that kind of clearly fall under the existing proposed definitions that I would like some more information on. And it's hard to talk about, what may or may not be exempt when we don't have the full knowledge of what we're using, and let alone how it works and how it's used. So I think when we're getting into narrowing down the definitions, that will be helpful to better understand the technology. And again, when it's being used for an investigation, I think that should just be in the use policy, and it doesn't mean that we would exclude the entire technology, because I imagine we use all of these in investigation, and that's why we have them, and that's why we use them, right? And so it's not limiting that, it's just, I think the intention here is just to have a transparent policy and public process that is more involved than the current none at all. Just to codify even those existing ones, like I've learned a lot on state acts on drone surveillance and freedom to privacy, and there's a lot of those things that already apply to police departments, but also when we're talking about applying potentially to other departments. So I think that a lot of this is just, as you said, you already follow some of these standards, so it's just making it clear. Also, for some of the hours in here, I appreciate the hours estimate, but I would like to ask or consider some of the similarities. Like I feel like of things we've talked about, that a lot of these policies will be very similar. I'm not suggesting straight copy paste, but I think if someone spends 20 hours on one policy, I don't think the next ones will hopefully take that long. And same with some of the annual reporting, that some of those will be, reporting numbers or complaints or costs for each technology, that you have to look into each one. But I would, I guess, just ask if it could be considered, or I guess if it was already, that a lot of these might be very similar or almost duplicate.
All right, thank you, Grace. Chris? Yes, go for it, Zach, I'm sorry.
I'm going to try to break that down. I think there's 3 separate things, yeah. So I might have to ask for a rehash. First of all, you're absolutely correct that that definition is in Illinois state law, but I think you'll find that it's actually under Disaster Preparedness and the Disaster Relief Act. As I said in my presentation, the definition of exigent circumstances for law enforcement is very clearly defined in the constitutional law. I've included that definition included in there, had several citations, and these are the cases that it's based off of. The second thing I'd like to note is about the list, and I apologize in advance. I did see your email. Darius sent me your email and Chris's email, but I was hoping to answer that broadly in here. So let me say again, I received this list from previous deputy chief. I didn't help compile it or gather it. A lot of those things you were talking about were included in things we may have used or may use. They are not things we actually own or currently use. There are several on there. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea what they are. I haven't seen those, but that list was gathered to be expansive and exhaustive rather than selective towards surveillance technology when it was first gathered. I think one of the examples I'll give too is Cellbrite technology. I can't remember if that was Councilmember Evans that asked about that, or if that was you that asked about that. That absolutely would be something that would be covered under a need to be monitored. But the way Cellbrite works, and we do use that currently, as an example, is during a murder investigation that we had recently, we needed to obtain cell phone data, location tracking data for a cell phone. That was obtained through Cellbrite. That information is only provided to us through a judicial warrant. That's the pipeline for that information. So in some of those technologies like that, those are already, they have accountability measures built in. So that's why I was trying to make it an example that those should be excluded. When it comes down to actual surveillance technology, which we believe it should be defined, I think everybody can probably recall the council meeting when Deputy Chief Smizer brought the box in, the actual physical things we own. As far as physical things of surveillance technology, it's very limited what we use. And even our software and digital access is not expansive. And it would easily, several of those would either easily be covered under things that already exist, oversight that already exists, or we could explore use policies for them. But as I explained in my presentation, I'd be worried that those would be redundant or even step on constitutional law in some spots.
Chris?
Thanks for the presentation. Deputy Chief Mikulik, based on the hours that you folks have estimated at this point to accommodate all the reports that you would be required at some point, and we haven't decided on the interval and all that, but with what you know now, how many staff members are you estimating, and what kind of staff members?
Yeah, that was your other question, Grace. I'm sorry. I knew there was a third one. I couldn't remember it. But yeah, when we're talking about hours, so this was difficult for us to come up to because we don't really understand the scope of it currently. And when I talked to Oak Park and asked them about it, they've actually not completed a review cycle yet. They had an annual report, but they have 0 technology approved. So they didn't have anything to report. They've done no use reports or policy reports. So we really didn't have a good way to base this off of. I would anticipate that this would take our entire administrative staff. It would take our data analysts. It would probably take 2 or 3 of our professional staff to compile all the information and things we need. And Grace, I will say to your point, I forgot to add this. The numbers that we came up with in the use reports we came up with, you're absolutely right that they would become easier as we went along. And when you and I talked, we talked about maybe coming up with a model use report and policy report. And I do have one of those that I'd like to share at some point with you to see if we are on the same page. If it's a case of the information that I provided is what the city council is looking for in the term of use reports, I agree that the workload could be much less.
Okay, but what you said though is if we hired nobody, it would eat up all these people's time. Mm-hmm. So what I was asking is if we weren't going to tie up administration, a few lieutenants and a few statistical, I know we've got several statistic people already, but I'm saying if we were to add to the department, how many and what kind would you estimate? And I realize it's early to try to do that, but.
Yeah, I apologize for misunderstanding your question.
No, it's all right.
We didn't able to come up with an accurate estimation of that.
Yeah.
I imagine it would be less than 5, even if the definition remained expansive. But it would require at least a full-time position, regardless.
At least one full-time. I would think so too. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Grace.
Thank you. Yeah, I would definitely love to see your draft kind of model use policy. And sorry, I'm trying to think of lots of notes, so I may have to follow up. And thanks for being patient when I threw like 5 things at you at once. You'd also said that that the ordinance doesn't identify staffing, cost, or training. I just want to point out that in some of the previous versions that you all are operating under, the use policy does have a section for training and auditing oversight for you all to propose and calculate. The initial use report talks about the cost of the technology itself. It doesn't specifically have staff cost in the policy, but it could be, if that's something that would be helpful to report or think about or plan ahead kind of operationally wise. And then also just want to mention about Oak Park, because I thought I heard that you'd said this was drafted from Oak Park, and I just wanted to clarify that while it is very similar, and what's proposed here is very similar to all the other ones because it was drafted off of model legislation and taking all these other examples into consideration. Oak Park was discovered later on in the drafting process, and that one has been used a lot because they're in Illinois. So some of the things like Illinois body cam state law exemptions are nice to swipe from them because they're in Illinois. But just wanted to clarify that I would say from drafting it, Oak Park was one of the least influential of the existing ordinances that have been out a lot longer as well. I know theirs is somewhat newer. And I think that's all. Let James go.
James.
I'm going to say that the Oak Park legislation has been very influential in how I looked at this because it had some of the components as we were looking at the original thing. It had dealt with some of the components that I was maybe struggling with in a way that made sense to me. While I understand that it wasn't part of the formative moments of this legislation that we're looking at, it has been involved over the past 6 months in helping me figure out the path to what I'm going to be able to support, and that very important thing that Grace pointed out, for a practical matter, it has survived so far under the legislative regime of the state of Illinois, which is also important to us.
Go for it, Zach.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I hammered the Oak Park theme a little bit too much. That wasn't my intention. It was the only one in the draft that we had that was specifically mentioned. And then as you said, when I looked at it, I would agree that it's similar in a lot of ways. Besides the 2 points that I pointed out in surveillance definition and exigent circumstances, which those definitions were not taken specifically from Oak Park. It was used as a combination of constitutional law, established best practice, and a combination also of, we're using civil liberty groups like the ACLU's definition of those as well.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Grace.
Sorry, I'm trying to wrap us up here. Could I wrap up some of our kind of requests moving forward here? Because it sounded like if we could have these slides and your script, and if you had information about the technology that you want to send us, or if we're having another follow-up presentation, that's great. Your draft use policy. And it would be helpful for me, because I appreciate this presentation, and I feel like I had more context and discussion, but I'm still not exactly clear, like, what would you recommend or propose then? Kind of like the short and sweet. You know, operationally, we have an issue with this definition, and we would propose this definition. So I think those things would be helpful for me.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further questions and or comments, Mr. Mikulik, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Awesome job. All right. At this time, I will request a motion to go into closed session for pending litigation and employment of specific employees pursuant to 5 ILCS 120-2, C2, and C11. May I have a motion?
I will yield the floor to JF. She wants to vote for her last closed session.
So moved.
Motion made by Jaya.
Second.
Seconded by Grace. Clerk, will you please call the roll? Sorry, not Kirk. Clerk.
Councilmember Wu,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Colasetti,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin,
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, to the public, we will now go into closed session. You all don't have to leave. You can stick around for the fun. We still got more. We'll be back after we're done. Thank you all. All right. All right, at this time, I'll take a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Motion made by Grace, seconded by?
Second.
Do I need a vote?
Yes.
Roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Wu, Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Councilmember Colacetti.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that passes. We are back. All right, we will now move on to adjournment. With no further business before this council, this meeting is adjourned. Please stay tuned for the Committee of the Whole, chaired by Councilmember Wilkin. Thank you.
Okay, call to order this meeting of the Urbana Committee of the Whole. Could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Wu. Here. Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Hersey. Councilmember Colacetti. Here. Councilmember Bishop. Councilmember Wilkin.
Here.
Councilmember Quisenberry.
Here.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no minutes for approval. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, public input and presentations. Any public input for tonight? Seeing none in chambers, no emails received. Any staff report for tonight? Oh, excellent. All right, moving on. First item of new business, resolution number 2026-02-006R, resolution certifying a community housing development organization for the Urbana Home Consortium, Habitat for Humanity, PY 2026. Program year, huh? Right? Okay. I was like, what is this?
Got it. Good evening, Council. So if it's all right, I'm actually going to speak about the first two items together because they're closely related, and then Council can decide whether to vote on those together or separately. So both of these resolutions are related to Community Housing Development Organization, or CHODO for short, funding through HUD's home program. One of these would certify Habitat for Humanity as a CHODO for the PY26 program year, and another would fund them for 5 affordable housing projects. Just as background and as a reminder, the city receives home funds through the Department of Housing and Urban Development as a consortium, the Urbana Home Consortium, with the cities of Champaign, the city of Urbana, and unincorporated Champaign County included in that jurisdiction. The purpose of the CHODO program within the larger home program is to provide support for locally based nonprofit organizations with the capacity to develop affordable housing. And this is a set aside within the home program where these funds are reserved specifically for this purpose. So funds are eligible to support development costs on affordable housing, rental, or homeowner projects. And then a limited amount of funds is also available to support operating expenses for these organizations. Each year, CHODOs are required to apply for recertification in order to continue receiving funds. During this process, staff review any updated organizational documents to confirm continued eligibility for all the requirements to be considered a CHODO, pertaining to things like board composition, continued 501c3 status, staff capacity, and experience. And then each year, CHODOs are also able, pending recertification, to apply for funding for specific projects, which again is why this tonight we have one resolution for certification and one for the actual funding agreement. So this year, Habitat for Humanity of Champaign County was the only organization to apply for CHODO funding. Habitat has regularly applied for CHODO funding over the course of the program's history. This year, they have applied for a total of $197,500 in development funds to support construction of 5 projects. This would be at a rate of $39,500 in development funds per project. Project addresses are detailed in Exhibit A of the memo, and a pro forma for each project is also included in the attached funding agreement. 3 of these projects would be in the city of Champaign, 2 would be in the city of Urbana. Again, as a reminder, home program funds are eligible for use anywhere within the home consortium geography. These would all be affordable single-family homes for sale to income qualifying households through Habitat's home ownership program. And then in addition to these development funds, the resolution in the packet would provide Habitat with $30,000 to support operating costs that could go to things like staff salaries, benefits, and trainings. Urbana's Community Development Commission discussed these resolutions at its regular January meeting and unanimously voted to recommend them for approval. Staff are also recommending approval, noting consistency with council goals related to partnering with developers to generate affordable housing, as well as the budget and goals outlined in the consolidated plan that was approved last year. So that's a general overview. I'm happy to take any questions. We're also joined by Chad Hoffman from Habitat for Humanity, who can maybe answer some more project-specific questions if there are any of those. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have questions? Oh, yes. We start going around. Mary Alice?
Yeah, I just have a really quick question. Do you know how many years Habitat has had a charter through the city?
I know we have project files going back to the 1990s. I don't have the exact date. in front of me.
No, that's totally fine. I'm just trying to establish how long that relationship has been. Thank you.
Chris, did you have one? Oh, going around? No? No. James, did you have a question?
No, but I'll make a motion if nobody else does.
I do have a question, sorry. Just confirming that we can't change anything about the definition of affordability, that $284,000 is what we're considered affordable first mortgage rate.
So that is the home requirement. I will let Chad speak to this, but in practice, their sale prices are quite a bit lower than that.
Okay, so yeah, if you want to come to that microphone, if you have, yeah, should be on, I think still.
So our affordability is based on appraisal price, and that's typically been $140,000 for our community in recent years, and that is a new house build. In addition, typically we're able to help our homeowners with about $30,000 in down payment assistance, so their mortgage starts at $110,000 and typically below that. We do provide a 0% interest as well, which adds to that affordability.
Awesome, thank you so much. Let's call questions. James, want to make a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion if there's no more questions.
Yep, go ahead.
And we should just do this as two different motions because doing them together would take two motions anyway. So I'll move resolution number 2026-02-006R, a resolution certifying a community housing development organization for the Urbana Home Consortium Habitat Humanity Plan Year 2026 to council for consent agenda.
Thank you. Moved by James, second by Mary Alice for consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes. And you want to take the second motion?
Sure, I'll go ahead and move resolution number 2026-02-007R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an Urbana Home Consortium Community Housing Development Organization funding agreement for Habitat for Humanity Plan Year 2026 to City Council on consent agenda for approval.
Second.
Thank you. Say motion moved by James, second by Mary Alice. Consent agenda. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? All right, and those pass. Thank you. Next up is ordinance number 2026-02-003, an ordinance amending the Urbana zoning map, rezone 904 East Main Street from R3 to B3, plan case number 2517-M-25.
We just need a few minutes to upload a presentation.
Sure, take your time.
We are joined tonight by Imiru C., who is the Planner 2, who was recently hired to our department. Imiru will be making the presentation, and I will also be available for questions this evening. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you and welcome. And make sure you got the green light on there, and you can move it if you need it closer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This item before you tonight is a request to approve a zoning map amendment to rezone the property located at 904 East Main Street from R3 single and two family residential district to B3 general business district. The subject property is located at 904 East Main Street and is directly adjacent to the property located at 908 East Main Street, which is already zoned B3 and is occupied by the Good Friends Animal Hospital. So the two parcels have a common owner, who is the Charlotte Pug Holding. East Main Street functions as a neighborhood edge with a mix of residential and commercial uses. As you can see on the map, there is a concentration of B2 and B3 zoned parcels along the corridor. The former structure was deteriorated and has been demolished and is now vacant. As a vacant parcel, the site is underutilized and doesn't contribute to the city's housing stock, and doesn't also contribute to the neighborhood activity. The applicant intends to redevelop the property in conjunction with the adjoining property. The applicant has been in communication with the city staff for over a year now, and pursuing opportunities. At some point, the applicant explored the conversion of a trailer to an office. The applicant is in need of an additional space for office. So the B3 general business district is to provide areas for a range of commercial uses wider than the neighborhood business, but at a lower intensity than the central business, meeting the city's need for general business. Under the zoning ordinance, the animal hospitals are only permitted in B3 general business district and only as conditional use. The Plan Commission reviewed this request at its December 18, 2025 and January 15, 2026 meetings and voted unanimously to recommend approval to the City Council. The rezoning is consistent with Imagine Urbana Comprehensive Plan, which supports incremental development and neighborhood serving commercial uses along neighborhood edges. Approving this request would allow a coordinated reinvestment on a vacant parcel. In summary, staff find that the proposed rezoning support incremental development and and also aligns zoning with the existing conditions along East Main Street. Staff further find that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan and zoning framework and won't be injurious to surrounding residential uses. Based on the Plan Commission unanimous recommendation and staff findings, staff recommends that the City Council approve the zoning map amendment for 904 East Main Street. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much for the presentation. Mr. on the side, James, question?
Yeah, real quick, I didn't see this in there. Thank you for the presentation and welcome to City Council. I didn't see this in here, but was there any input from neighbors around the location? I didn't see anything in the Plan Commission meeting notes, but was there any that I missed?
We've received only one comment from a neighbor by email in favor of the rezoning.
Thank you.
Mary Alice?
Yeah, so I'm taking a look at the comprehensive plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that area is in Neighborhood 1, which is yellow. And if I read Neighborhood 1, it says small businesses like cafes and professional offices may be appropriate along the edges of these neighborhoods. So are we classifying, I believe it's a veterinary clinic, right? Is that kind of classified as a professional office? I'm just trying to see how it meshes with the comp plan.
So this was actually the main point of discussion in the Plan Commission meeting, and we felt that there actually may be a departure from the Neighborhood 1 typology in this area specifically to account for the existing commercial corridor, which is along East Main Street. So it actually does not fit the Neighborhood 1 classification perfectly. In this case, the small veterinary clinic does function primarily as an office location in the sense that there's no boarding of animals. It's small domestic animals. There's office use within the property, and then the actual surgical component of the property is relatively small. But with that said, thank you for your attention to that, because that was the main point of discussion in Plan Commission.
So, well, I think that you are correct. There are certain elements in the comprehensive plan that it does meet. This is a pretty glaring one that doesn't meet, in my opinion. It's not to say that I don't think it's a good idea, that I think that the business should be able to expand. They've been there for many, many years. So the house next door has been demolished, removed. Does that mean that the people now, did they demolish it, or or have they bought it? I'm just trying to figure out who the current owner is.
So the property itself has been demolished, 904 East Main Street.
Right. My question is whether or not the owners of the property, the animal hospital people, if they own that property and demolish that house.
Yes. They have a common owner.
Right, over on the east side. Okay, thank you.
Chris, did you have your hand for a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, as I was reading the minutes of the Plan Commission, you're right, Olivia, there was a back and forth about what is the future of this area, and it is beginning to develop into a kind of mixed-use corridor. Excuse my lack of urban planning there, but it is becoming, I mean, I want to be clear though. This is they're planning in 18 months, perhaps an office, right? This is for office space for them, and their current business, the animals go inside to get treated, and they're not running an outdoor kennel, for instance, and that's why there wasn't any neighborhood fuss about them taking over the land, or they didn't even notice it, probably.
So that is correct. The expansion would be for office, and there will be no boarding on site. The only boarding that would happen on site is for patients. So if the, you know, dog or cat needs to sleep it off for a night, that's the only instance in which case there will be boarding.
But the animals are inside the building, right?
Correct. No external facilities. Yeah.
Other questions? I have a question. Are you doing a motion? Are you doing a question? Okay. So it seems like we're doing B3 because that's the only one that allows an animal hospital in any way, shape, or form, right? That's why it can't be B2 or something. But with a conditional use permit, so they'll still have to come back and get a conditional use permit for this property. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions? Any motion to be made? James?
I'll make a motion. I'll move ordinance number 2026-02-003, an ordinance amending the Urbana zoning map, rezone 904 East Main Street from R3 to B3, plan case number 2517-M-25 to City Council on the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by James, seconded by Jaya for the consent
And
agenda.
I'd like to speak to my motion.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this because there is already a veterinarian office right next door to this. The person, the people who own that clinic have bought that lot, and they want to be able to do surgery there that they can't currently do in the office that they have. I used to live, more than 25 years ago, I used to live east of Urbana, in rural Urbana, and this was our veterinarian. It's been there for more than 25 years. I can't speak to much more than that, maybe 30 years. And so it's already been a part of the neighborhood. It's very convenient if you have pets to have a vet that's close by. We currently now use the one on Philo Road, which is a business corridor, but it's close by to our house. So if this was like a brand new thing that didn't exist, I would understand asking stronger questions about it. But because it's going for B3 next to a lot that's B3 to do the same thing that's on that lot next to it, I am supportive of it. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Mary Alice?
Yeah, no, I appreciate James's commentary because I'm kind of on the fence about this one. I know this business. I know that they have been around for a long time. They're established in Urbana. I'm happy they're staying in Urbana and they want to expand in the area. So that's on the plus side. On the con side is the comprehensive plan. And so we just passed it. And I feel like if we want to make, and I don't think it's a bad idea to make this kind of a corridor, a business corridor, you know, but I'd love to hear what the residents in the area think because they haven't been given an opportunity yet to talk about that. So I think I'm going to support this. I'm not 100% sure. My only hesitation is with the comp plan because I feel like that's something we discussed for a very long time, and this is against it.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, we take a voice vote. Oh, yep, go ahead, James.
I do have one other comment. If you're familiar with this street, it's been a commercial corridor for a really long time. Andre's motorcycle was down the street there. There's businesses all along the north side. If you look at the map, I mean, it's riddled with business. Were we planning to go back and change those all to residential and kick those businesses out? I don't think we were. I don't think we were thinking about changing the character. And if it, I would agree that if it was taking things in a different direction that weren't neighborhood, not a neighborhood conforming business, I'd agree with skepticism. But I don't think we're changing something. I think we're being consistent with the character of what already this street was.
And if I may add, like the Imagine Urbana intent to keep neighborhood one as residential, but anticipates neighborhood serving businesses along corridors and neighborhood edges where such businesses already exist.
Thank you. Last call. Other comments? Okay, we do voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? And that passes. Thank you. Our next item is ordinance number 2026-02-004, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment number 7, TIF closure.
So I think I can make this one fairly quick. You've had several discussions recently about TIF closure, and we previously approved a budget amendment, and at that time, we indicated it would be necessary to come back and do some additional cleanup as things kind of shook out at the closing. So really what this budget amendment does is it takes projects that are underway, commitments that were made before or by December 31st, and it moves those in to our post-TIF closure fund so that we can account for those there. And then 6.39 million remaining is budgeted to be ported to central TIF. And I think that's all consistent with what you've previously discussed, so I don't really have anything to add.
Thank you. Yes, Chris, question?
Thank you, Elizabeth, for keeping that one short. Okay, we're adding 6.39 million to central TIF, and my question is, how much total now in central TIF? Do you have any idea? I didn't see it in the packet, and I'll bet you I hit you with another surprise question.
Yeah, that's knowable, but I don't know that off the
Okay.
top of my head, so I could get you that information.
Thank you.
Yes, Mary Alice.
My only question about this is there is $12,615 for ED contribution, and I don't recognize that. Is that economic development staff time?
Usually that line item is used for things like, what do we currently call the Convention and Visitors Bureau? They keep changing their name.
Oh, yeah. The Visit
Experience
Champagne.
Champaign-Urbana.
Yes, Experience Champaign
Oh,
Urbana,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Olivia, do you have any?
That's right, that's my understanding as well.
So just to dig into that a little bit, does that mean that the TIF 4 is going to pay what used to be called Visit Champaign, Experience Champaign, $12,615? Is that what that says?
That's what that says, and I would assume that's because we made a commitment for this year prior to the closure of the TIF, and so we're holding that to fulfill that commitment.
Okay. I didn't realize that we had specifically earmarked TIF funds to pay for that contract.
Yes, I think we've done that for a number of years.
Okay, I just didn't realize it. Thanks.
Questions? I have some related to that. Yeah, I'd like a little more information. I wasn't aware that we could use TIF money for something like that that's not specifically related to the TIF area. So for a follow-up, we could have some more information on that ED contribution, if that is Visit Champaign County or something, and how it's okay to use TIF for it. And I see that's in the revised budget, not the current budget. So I would also like more information if that was already the plan, because it looks like this is a change in the revised budget.
I believe that was in the original central TIF budget. So when you're looking at the revised budget column, in that first grouping of numbers is the post-TIF closure fund. So that's where we're moving the existing commitments to track them separately from the now closed TIF. But I believe that was in the original central TIF budget. I'm fairly certain it was. But I'm sure Olivia and I can put our heads together and get you more information.
Okay, so this post-TIF fund is, we're creating, kind of setting aside a new fund to wrap up some of these TIF projects? Is that
Correct.
right?
We've done this previously when we have closed other TIFs in order to differentiate things existing money that was spent prior to the closure date. We take all those commitments and we move it into this post-TIF closure fund where we can track that separately to keep track of the commitments that were existing at the time the TIF was closed and how we follow through on those.
But they were committed before the TIF closed, so they still count as TIF expending, right?
Correct, yeah, we wouldn't be moving anything that wasn't committed before the TIF was closed.
Thank you so much. And then, so that was, maybe answers my other question down below at the actual TIF 4 fund, where it's transferred to post-TIF closure, $3.2 million, and that's to wrap up all those projects that we've already committed, right, just before the fund disappears.
Yep, that's right.
Cool. Thank you. Other questions? Or motion? Yes, Mary Alice?
I will make a motion for the regular agenda. All right, here we go. I'll move for approval to City Council on the regular agenda, ordinance number 2026-02004, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment number 7, TIF 4 closure.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by James for the regular agenda. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please, do we need to voice one for this? Yeah, we can do voice. Yeah, okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? Okay, thank you. That passes. And our last item of new business is ordinance number 2026-02-005, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment number 8, fire engine purchase.
Good evening. I will also try to keep this presentation short. As you know, we have had several struggles with our fire department fleet for many years now, or several years now, particularly in the last year especially. So we have worked with PW Fleet and the fleet manager to try to resolve this situation and make our fleet more reliable, more sustainable. So specifically, we're talking about the replacement of our 2002 fire engine. As I've said, we've worked with fleet to assess the fleet and the status of this vehicle, and we have determined that we are reaching the end of the serviceable life of it. That also coincides with NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association recommendations of a maximum lifespan of 25 years for a fire apparatus. And that's based on the safety features that it was equipped with once it was manufactured. So with that, we're also experiencing many repair and maintenance issues. We've got numerous mechanical issues with the vehicle. And that's not because of a lack of maintenance, that's because of fleet has tried to maintain the vehicle and keep it going. However, they're finding it difficult to find parts for it, and they're also spending a lot of time and effort and energy and money into trying to maintain the vehicle and keep it operational. So, as a matter of fact, we spent almost $100,000 in the last 4 years just trying to keep the vehicle operational. So, with a vehicle that was purchased, the purchase price was around $300,000 to $350,000. Obviously, that doesn't make sense. We're throwing, as our fleet manager likes to say, we're throwing good money at bad. So we've taken all those factors into account, and we're recommending the replacement of this engine. So the replacement of the 2002 engine will also help improve the reliability of our fleet and help take some of that load off of the Public Works fleet and his staff. Some of the complications that we face with this. So because of the issues that we've had with the fleet, we are operating our reserve status vehicles, which are our older vehicles that we keep in case of breakdowns or maintenance of our front line. we're now operating those vehicles, or we have been operating those vehicles for extended periods of times, meaning several months, which obviously that use increases the maintenance costs on those vehicles. The other issue is that we have times where we don't have any other operational vehicles available to us. So we've had to reach out to the other neighboring agencies to try to borrow theirs, and we've also had to rent fire apparatus at times as well. So those add their own complications because we have to see, we're dependent on what their availability is from the neighboring agencies or from the rental companies. And it's not like they have a car rental place for fire trucks. So they're a little difficult to find. And so we're out of service during those times, and then also there's a cost to that. So what we've been charged is about $200 to $300 depending on the apparatus per day, just for that rental if we've needed it. So the other complicating thing is that there isn't a car lot for fire apparatus. You have to order it, and now the lead time on that is 3 to 4 years. So even if we decide today that we want to purchase one, we can't just go out and buy it. We have to wait that time, and so that continues to add those maintenance costs and everything that we have. So working with fleet and with the fire department, we've come up with a solution. We're suggesting a solution of purchasing a stock engine. So one of our dealers has actually made a purchase, or I'm sorry, they have ordered this stock engine, and they ordered about 6 months ago, knowing that there were price increases coming. So, excuse me, that because they knew those price increases were coming, we were actually able to save $200,000 versus if we were to sign a contract to purchase a new one today. So there's savings in there, as well as this unit is called a stock unit. So it's essentially like a cookie cutter where there's very limited options available to us to change. So that saves time with engineering, and it also saves some money, which is where some of those expenses or savings come from as well. So working with fleet, we've determined that this stock vehicle will meet our needs, even with the limited options available to us. So we're suggesting that you approve the budget amendment to make this purchase.
I do want to just speak to the budget amendment very briefly again. So you notice on the budget amendment, we have 1.1 million in the VERF for the fire engine purchase. We're not showing an additional transfer from the general fund at this time. After some further evaluation, we determined that that was not necessary. Just know that we're constantly, at least annually, reevaluating the VERF, but for now, we think that we can do this without an additional transfer from the general fund.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have questions? Chris?
Yeah, just so I got this straight, a stock engine means it's still a new truck, right? An
That's
entirely new truck. It's just been already made, and we don't get to, I don't know, jazz it up our way, right? I mean, it won't be custom to us specifically, but it'll be, for the most part, a new truck that we need.
Correct. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why we settled on this particular unit, is because it's very similar to the engines that we have now, and with the limited options, it would still meet our needs with those options.
And it's going to last, we hope, 15 to 20 years at least. I mean, maybe 25. We'd rather that.
We hope so.
We'd rather
We definitely
that,
hope
yeah.
so, yes.
Yeah. I mean, is there any, Chief, I mean, do you have any plans for better, and not that you're doing a poor job now, but better routine maintenance? Like, could we keep it maintained more frequently so they don't break down as quick, or?
So I think that's part of the goal of this, is by purchasing this vehicle, then that moves our 2002 out and replaces it with a 2016. So our reserve fleet is newer, which means that it takes less time to maintain those vehicles and keep them operational.
Okay, I'll leave you alone.
And then eye on the time, we have 4 minutes until 10:30. And if someone wants to move to extend a few minutes, or think we can say everything in 4 minutes? Go for it.
I'd like to move to extend for 15 minutes, so 10:45.
Okay, motion to extend till 10:45. Is there a second? second to extend for
Second.
10:45. Okay, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with nay? Okay, thank you. We are extended.
I've got a question.
Okay, question was answered. Other questions, James, go ahead.
So that means no Bose stereo on this one because we can't jump? No, I do have a real question, sorry. Does this vehicle that we're replacing have a value, and how do we get that value?
So I think we've used most of the value of that vehicle. I think we've gotten our money's worth out of it for sure.
But surely, like the Illinois Fire Service Institute could use it, or somebody out there that can't afford to buy a new fire truck could use it.
So I think the city has a policy on how to surplus that equipment in a process. So I'm sure it'll follow that process.
Okay, so we don't have a price or an expectation for that value beyond zero?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't believe we do, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Alice.
All right, so now that James has made us stay for an extra 15 minutes, I'm going to ask my question.
We don't have to use it all.
Would it be fair, so in addition, purchasing the stock engine saves us 3 years, like, in terms of when we would be able to get the truck. But would it be fair, in addition, to say that it basically saves us about $300,000 because you've got the $200,000 from just stock, and then the maintenance cost in the 2002, which cost us about $100,000? Is that a fair comparison? If we go forward with this plan, we'll save about $300,000.
That's correct. That $100,000 in maintenance was over 4 years roughly, so,
Yeah, but it's even older, so.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
You, all right, any other questions or motion, Chris?
And upon approval, I get a ride on the truck, right? That joke killed in 2x2, remember?
Thank you. And a motion?
I'll move approval of ordinance number 2026-02-005, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance budget amendment number 8, fire engine purchase, to the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I can't do consent agenda because it's a budget amendment, but otherwise it
Regular
stands.
agenda?
Yeah.
Yep, go for it. I'm glad you got that one.
Who's second? Mary Alice, okay. Moved by Jay, second by Mary Alice. Thank you. And discussion? Yes, James?
I just want to say thank you for taking a closer look at this. I know when we discussed in 2x2s, there was a request to maybe do a budget amendment, and just for the public's benefit, the VERV is the place we put money to save to buy new vehicles, and so being able to buy it out of the money we saved is really helpful.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. And thank you, that passes. And our last item is council input and communications. Yeah, you want to go first? You want to save for last? How you want? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Jay. Oh, okay, Chris, go ahead.
All right. Jaya Colasetti, what do you think you're doing? No, it's been a real honor and privilege to serve with you. You've provided some of the most bravest, courageous representation I've seen, and it was often left to you to say what needed to be said. And I really thank you for that. I'm going to miss our impromptu after-council meetings out in front of the building. But you've set a very high standard for honesty and integrity. However, you don't get out this easy. You now join a peculiar group of people that I often consult to do this job, and that is former Urbana City Council members. And I have your phone number. So, I know I speak for many. Thank you for your service.
Yes, Mayor Williams?
Yeah, so I'm going to do that too, but also I just wanted to take a moment to thank our community, to thank our police department, to thank everyone who had a part in the handling of multiple protest over the last week with no incident. Everyone remained safe, and our young people were so courageous and allowing their voices to be heard. Extremely proud of them. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. I actually spoke with one of the organizers yesterday, and they were just extremely appreciative of just the approach and the collaboration. So salute to everybody involved. But also, want to just take a moment to just, again, give a round of applause to Ms. Jaya for her service and dedication over the last few years. Unfortunately, I've only been able to experience 8 months of it with you, but I've thoroughly enjoyed having you to the left of me, laughing and making fun of me when I make mistakes, in this journey and process. But your service to this community is greatly appreciated. We will miss you in this capacity, but understand and know that you are still very well involved, and you'll be present, and you'll be, having public input. We'll have to cut the timer on you as well. So I appreciate your time and support over this last few months. So thank you.
James?
Yes, I also want to thank you, Jaya, for your service. You have been supportive, and you have been challenging, and you have always done so with thoughtful integrity and always with the best hopes for the city of Urbana in mind. So I really appreciate our time working together, and I look forward to your questions in the future.
Thank you. Others, I'll do one and give you last unless whoever hasn't gone. I'll just echo a ditto. Again, don't have good words, and I'm still, like I said, in the denial phase of grieving of Jaya leaving, so I have not yet accepted it, at all. I will miss you extremely in this role. You've been very compassionate and thoughtful representative, and I think you've helped really make some of our discussions a lot more productive, and I really appreciate your insight and balancing what sometimes turns into extreme sides of an issue, and you have a really great way of navigating that, and that's something I will miss a whole lot, and hope that our next council members can bring some of those skills. I've been trying to develop them as much as I may not have got there. I've been working on it, but I don't think I can carry that whole torch, so I hope that we have some other kinds of bridging the ideological divides and have some other kind of voice to step in there. So again, appreciate you so much. Really thank you for your service, and I'm going to miss you a whole lot. Mary Alice, you want a chance? We'll give Jaya last. You want to say something?
Yeah, no, I said my piece when Jaya announced, but I'll just repeat it for those who didn't hear it, and to repeat it so that hopefully this is your last thoughts. Jaya, it's been a pleasure working with you for the past 5 years. I have always found you to be very compassionate towards the public, towards any issues that are brought up, always willing to listen to all the different myriad voices that we have, and looking for a way that we can best meet as many people's needs as possible. And I always look to you to find the middle way. So you're not going to be here, so I'm going to be calling you to find the middle way. But thank you so much for your time here in the city. It's been greatly appreciated.
Jaya, you want that?
Okay, wow. We'll see if I can do this without crying this time. Well, it has been such an incredible honor to serve as part of this body, but I want to kind of ground us back in why we're here, right? For the folks who will still be here, some of the things that have been important to me that I look forward to continuing to engage on from a public perspective, and also to remind us that even though it can feel really hopeless and people can feel really helpless right now, I think the protests are a beautiful sign of how people are showing up, to remind this body that there is power at the municipal level too. So, we've talked about the comprehensive plan, we've talked about the goals for our city, and I just want to encourage this body to really think about some of those priorities. So starting with housing, which is so often where we kind of spend a lot of our time. We're very fortunate to have the leadership of Supervisor Chenoweth as we're talking about emergency situations, right? Getting folks somewhere just warm and safe for a night, sometimes longer. But I think we really need to think about what the role of the city is in addressing housing across the board, right? Not just emergency housing, not just temporary housing, but also thinking about how are we as a city updating our zoning ordinances to make sure that we do have the stock of housing that's needed across the board. I know Champaign just recently got some of their initial data on their housing study, and they're anticipating needing another, I think, 6,000 units by 2035, right? So that's just across Wright Street. We talk about that so often. I know we're still working on ours, but I do think that that's really important for us to keep in mind, right, that there is a housing shortage. I can say for myself, I have a loved one who moved to Champaign because she couldn't find housing in Urbana that she could afford. And when we talk about housing, also thinking about how that impacts folks who don't have adequate places to live when they're on Medicaid, for example. We don't have an adequate number of nursing home beds. Again, from personal experience, my mom spent her last years of her life in Newman, 45 minutes away from us, right? That we need to be thinking about housing holistically. I've had residents who've been asking me about auxiliary dwelling units for my whole time on council. So really thinking about how do we meet the current needs so that everybody has a safe place to lay their head. Other thing that has been a major priority for this council that you will definitely see me continue to show up for is talking about violence prevention. And I just want to strongly encourage us to think about responding in a way that is evidence-based and is based on best practices. There are lots of feelings and opinions, which makes sense. This is an issue that hits home. But I also think it's really important for us to think about not just how are we wanting to show up, but what is a safe way to show up for folks. Simple things that might seem like good intentions of showing up with information about domestic violence services at someone's door, if they are actively in a domestic violence situation, could put their life in danger, right? So thinking about as we tackle those challenging issues, whether it's gun violence, domestic violence, that we're utilizing the expertise in our community. We have some of the leading experts on violence prevention working at the university, currently and previously. We need to be having these conversations with the university involved, not just in isolation, and that we, again, are using evidence-based and survivor-centered approaches to this work. I also just want to say how amazing it's been to see the change in terms of our economic development priorities in these 8 months already too, that we're having the conversations about Philo Road, we're having the conversations about downtown, and making sure that we do keep that focus too. And that extends not just to new businesses, but I'm going to come back to a favorite of Chris's mind is the skate park. I know that seems simple, but it ties right back into the conversation about violence prevention. And I say this because there's research that shows an increase in pro-social behavior and decrease in violent crimes when you have a skate park, right? So thinking about this is not, just an economic piece, but that it's a way for us to think about how we bring community together too. And then finally, I would just say that I have been so honored as we talk about the budget being a moral document to see the way that this council, this administration has put that into practice for this fiscal year, which has been hard because city staff has been stretched thin. But as you start looking ahead to the next fiscal year, keeping that priority, making sure that funds get out to the folks that need them the most, and that we're not just thinking about funding, we're also thinking about legislation, making sure we stay true to our sanctuary city status, make sure that we do wrap up that surveillance ordinance. So I think that we got additional great information tonight, but that needs to be in place so that all of our residents feel safe in this community and that we're taking the steps that we can at the local level because there are things that we can do. And like I said, it's easy to feel helpless, but there's so much goodwill, there's so much momentum, there's so many incredible people who work in this building and all of the city buildings that I think if this body stays true to the principles that have been outlined in the priorities, the city will be in good hands. Thank you all so much for the privilege of getting to serve, and I look forward to seeing you all and coming and talking at that microphone in the future.
All right, thank you. I think everyone's talked, so no further business. We are adjourned.